saying that what is happening in the Congo is crimes against humanity. He wasn't the only one who raised his voice. How many of us have read work from Mark Twain? I know I read it in high school. Did you know that Mark Twain was an advocate for the Congolese? He said, well, I may not go to the Congo, but I will use my talent as a writer to speak for the Congolese. So he writes a document called Leopold's Soliloquy, describing how Leopold felt he was right what he was doing. Orange John, Booker T. Washington, he couldn't go to the Congo. He said, well, let me write an article. The Jesse Jackson back then said, you know what, I'm not going to remain silent when I know that there are 10 million Congolese dying. European joined. Joseph Conrad, he hears what's happening in the Congo, goes in the Congo to see for himself. And he said, oh my God, horrors, horrors, horrors. That's what he said in his book, Heart of Darkness. He could not believe that ordinary people were being killed. So he told himself, how can I share this knowledge to a European audience? So you read the book, Heart of Darkness. Anybody eat Cadbury chocolate? Because I do, with pride. Because the founder of the Kambale chocolate factory was also an advocate of the Congo. And I'm sharing with you how many people in different walks of life, they all stood up 100 years ago on behalf of the Congolese. And due to their advocacy, on November 15, 1908, Congo was taken away from Leopold. But what did he do to the Congo? Because you have to remember, there were people who live on the land. So you had a colonial power that came and imposed a system of exploitation and destroyed the Congolese institution of people, how they used to live. So the personal rule of Leopold did stop eviscerating the institution that existed. So that's when the decline of state institutions within the Congo started. But now the second challenge is the Belgian colonialism that you see on the slide there. The reason I'm pointing that out is that whenever Congo was taken away from Leopold, he wasn't given back to the Congolese. He was given to Belgium. So Belgium, as they control the Congo, they still did the same thing. They used the resources, especially to fight World War I and World War II. Some of you may not know, Congolese did fight these two wars. They even helped liberate Europe during World War II, during the Holocaust. And they were part of the contingents of the Belgian soldiers who fought during that time. But not only that, the resources of the Congo continue to come out for exploitation. Hiroshima and Nagasaki could not have happened. The bombing of those cities, the uranium that was used to bomb these cities came from the Congo. But it came to Belgian hands. So you see the system of resource exploitation continue, even though Leopold wasn't there anymore. But the people on the ground were still under colonialism. They couldn't rise up. Anyone who rose up was arrested or killed. A good example is Simon Kimbangu. Simon Kimbangu is believed to be a prophet in the Congo. I see him as a community organizer way before Mr. Change Obama. He mobilized Congolese to demand sovereignty. But because of how he was able to bring people together, he was put in prison for 30 years. You only hear about Mandela, 27 years. A Congolese spent 30 years fighting, right, democratically, peacefully, for sovereignty in his country, and he was in prison for that. But his message did stay within the Congolese community and got the word of the guy that you see at the end, Patrice Lumumba. Patrice Lumumba was a community organizer too. Yeah, that's the fancy word that everybody uses now. Now, as he mobilized the Congolese in 1958, he was demanding that the colonial power leave the Congo, right? So that the Congolese could be sovereign and free and be independent. Some of his message that he had, he took it from the Pan-African movement that was happening during the time, 1958, what was going on? Pan-African Congress in Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah, first president of Ghana, calls in African leaders to speak about the development of the whole African continent. Patrice Lumumba goes there with two other Congolese, and they share with him, you need to go back to your country and do the Yes We Can movement. If you don't do it, right, Africa can develop. So they had a plan of the United States of Africa with the capital in Loboville, which is Kinshasa today. They saw the Congo River providing electricity to the whole continent. They saw how the resources will help. So it was really important for Congo to be free. So he goes back, young man, he was like 32 when he started his movement. He became Prime Minister of the Congo at age 34, a young Congolese organizing other young Congolese, democratically, with no guns, demanding independence, was even faced by Belgian, he faced Belgian paratroopers with guns shooting people, January 4th, 1959. Yet they were resilient. Because of their resiliency, we were able to get independence on June 30th, 1960. Now here's what you have to remember about him. Whenever he started mobilizing, he was clear and plain about what he believed in. He made it clear to Western powers that he wanted the resources of the Congo to benefit the Congolese people. So guess who was the president then? Dwight Eisenhower. So guess who's saying he wanted the resources of the Congo to benefit the Congolese people? An African man. Please, we have the Cold War going on, and you have an African leader who's telling you you can't take the cobalt to fight the Cold War. So what do? You assassinate him. And that's what happened to him. Wow, he had the spirit of the people. And he had people rally around him, and he shared with people, let us at least benefit from what we have. That didn't sit well with Western powers. So within weeks, he was deposed. Within months, on January 17, 1961, he was assassinated. For those of us who were born back then, we will remember that. That's the same day Dwight Eisenhower who made his exit speech. And in his exit speech, he spoke about the military industrial complex. And that was right when Kennedy was getting into power. But the same day he was warning the American people about the military industrial complex, that same military industrial complex killed an elected leader in an African country. Why is his assassination important to point out? That didn't just set back the Congo centuries back. He set back the whole African continent. Because his ideals was for the development of Africa, not just the Congo. So what happened when he's assassinated? A dictator is imposed in a coup in 1965, a CIA-backed coup of Joseph Désiré Mobutu. That's the guy with the leopard hat. So he was president for 32 years. Now, I'm going to give you guys a secret. Please don't tell anybody I say this. God forbid, Obama is assassinated today. After he's assassinated, Canada and Mexico take Dick Cheney and make him the president of the United States. Not for 4 years, not for 8 years, but for 3 decades, while the people within the country organized democratically to remove him. So we see that happening where? In the Congo. And what did he do? He destroyed again the spirit of the people. Anybody who rose up, they were actually killing. That was done in public, in stadiums, to intimidate the people. And the whole world knew what suffering the communists were going through at the time. But why did they support him? He became clear that without the Congo, the world economy, specifically the United States economy, will not function. Why am I saying so? 1981, there were a shortage of color TV. Many Americans during the time do not know why there was a shortage of color TV. So I'm going to tell you what happened during that time. 1977 and 1979, there were 2 rebellions in the Congo. In the southern part of the Congo, and that's a region where they have cobalt. Cobalt is essential for the functioning of a lot of electronic devices, especially even your color TV. So during that rebellion, it disrupted the production of cobalt. That affected the US economy directly, especially in the military field. So the Congress was really concerned about the situation at the time. So they contracted the Congressional Budget Office to do a study on it and find out, what do we do if we can get Congo's cobalt? So if you go online and you do a Google search of a document called Cobalt Policy, that should be one of the first links that will come up. It was written by the Congressional Budget Office in 1981. And basically they did a study to find out, what do we do if we don't get cobalt for Congo? So here's the remix of what they told Congress. Well, let's say the United States doesn't produce any cobalt. 64% of the world's cobalt come from the Congo and Zambia, a very volatile area in the world. Given that we don't have enough stockpile of cobalt, if this region that's volatile doesn't produce our cobalt, we'll be affected. Those are the two vulnerabilities that I spoke about. One was, in time of war, you can wage a war. And the second one was economic, of course, with the color TV. So that already made the United States government at the time have a policy that supports strong men who will provide unfair access to resources rather than supporting the people. The same thing that we are seeing in Egypt. Supporting a dictator while you know that the people are trying to rise to be sovereign and free. But there was something around the world that changed. The wall of Berlin falls. There were democratic movement within the African continent. From 1990 to 1996, Congolese started organizing democratically to be able to remove him as a dictator because his support was not needed. The United States didn't need to support him anymore. The Congo was over basically after 1990. So the Congolese rise, organized, had different conferences, National Sovereign Conference, speaking about how we're going to remove it. And while this is happening within the Congo with democratic movement, right next door in Rwanda, there is the Rwandan genocide. 1994. 1 million Rwandans died. Many Tutsis, majority Tutsis were killed. Very horrific conflict. While the genocide occurred, there were about 1.2 million Rwandans who crossed the border into Congo. And as they crossed, amongst them, there were people who committed the genocide. And then there were civilians also who were amongst those people. As they crossed the border, they were placed right around the border of Congo and Rwanda. So some of the people who were committing atrocity would cross the border at night and go back to Rwanda, fight, kill a few people, and there was this instability around the borders. At the time, the vice president of Rwanda, his name was Paul Kagame. Today he's the president of Rwanda. He was the vice president and the defense minister. In 1996, he goes to the UN and tells the UN, if you do not take care of this problem, I'm going into the Congo. And it's kind of interesting that as I'm analyzing the political situation in the Congo today, I'm watching the video of him in 1996 saying it from his own mouth at the Security Council. And I didn't even know that he actually made that speech when I was young in the Congo. Did he have legitimate reasons at the time to come to the Congo to remove the refugee? Yes. If there are people who pose a threat to your country and they are right at the border, I do believe that you have to take measures to protect your civilians. But here's what actually took place now. Though there was a pretext to come into the Congo because of the refugees, and Rwanda did come in, but in the process of them coming to the Congo or removing the refugees, this is what they've done. One, they didn't just stop at removing the refugees. They did kill some of them. 200 of them have disappeared. 200,000 of them actually have disappeared. The second one, though they came for the refugees, they found themselves in Kinshasa. If you look at the map of the Congo, Eastern Congo and Western Congo is miles, thousands of miles apart. So they were supposed to be in the east, but they ended up in the west in the capital city. They toppled the dictator and installed a rebel leader, Laurent Désiré Kabila. So that's when the fifth challenge comes, is wars and invasion. After they installed a new president, they start exploiting the resources of the Congo. Surprisingly, guess when they found the coltan in the Congo? 1996. We didn't know we had coltan, by the way. Guess what happened in 1996? The invasions of the Congo took place when Rwanda and Uganda came into the Congo. 1998, the rebels don't get along because of sort of political situations whereby the president of the Congo at the time that was installed, Laurent Kabila, tells the population that Rwanda and Uganda, they are in the Congo, they exploit the minerals, they need to go back. Rwanda leaves, 2 weeks later, they reinvent the Congo. 1998, there is a full-blown war. That's what you hear sometimes if you do research on the Congo, something called the African World War, where more than 9 African countries were involved in the Congo. Why were they involved in the Congo? They were involved in 2 sides. There were sides of African countries supporting the government in the West, and there were the other side supporting Rwanda and Uganda. This is when we see the introduction of everything that we know about the Congo. The killing, the raping, the exploitation of the mineral resources. But if you don't take this history into consideration, right, to know that he didn't just start today, it's a system that's been in place for centuries, that today we have all those symptoms of both war, creates, then we can stop it. And what has this challenge done?